When you first start your career as a software engineer, you're going to be working with recruiters. They form a core part of the industry, both for the company that they work for and for you as the candidate. It's important when working with recruiters to understand the different incentive structures they have in place and how they make their money. I'm going to generalize here and talk about different things that I've seen in my career, and it's not going to be an exhaustive list. We're not going to be mapping the whole industry, but I want to give you a good understanding of how you can work with recruiters, both for yourself and to benefit the company. So let's get into it. First and simplest way that recruiters make money is by working for the company that they're hiring for. In many cases, these people will be called talent acquisition. You might also hear them called TA. So these recruit for the organization broadly. Doesn't mean they're just hiring software engineers, but also design, product, and even non-product roles like maybe finance or IT or HR. Company with their own TA team may include different specializations that focus on different roles. You'll have recruiters that look at just software engineers, and you have some that maybe look at like legal or some of those other auxiliary roles. The second kind of recruiter you'll encounter works for an agency. So this is a pretty typical service-based model that you would have seen from other places. It's an agreement between the host company and the recruitment agency. The recruiting group who get paid for finding a candidate, which could be a fixed fee, or it might be a percentage based on the employee's salary for a period of time, for example, 12 months. This means if they find a software engineer, they pay them $100,000 and they get a 10% fee. The recruitment agency then gets $10,000. The host company is going to be paying $110,000. That fee is not taken out of the software engineer's salary. It would be rare to see that. I haven't seen that in my time. Although there are services where you might pay a recruiter or maybe a career coach that could help you develop your own career, and maybe you pay them a service. But generally, when a recruiter is getting a fee, it's something additional the host company pays for. It's not something you as the hired candidate that you pay for. Salary model is better for everyone since the recruiter has an incentive to hire the right people and keep them at the company for a longer period. However, it only works for permanent employees and not so much on short-term contractors. The third kind of recruiter that I've worked with is the freelance and independent recruiter. These people operate as their own one-person agency, and they're really a subset of that second group. So they will find roles and then they will send that out to their contractors. The way this works is the recruiter, this could work either at both a service-based model or an individual recruiter. They'll go out to a company and say, hey, what roles do you have? Company might go to them and say, hey, we need a software engineer. That recruiter can then tap into their network, find a contractor for that role, and then place them into the company. In the recruiter cohort, you'll find the most variability both with agencies and the sort of more independent one-person agencies. Some genuinely want to help you find a great role, and others just want a massive CV so they can send them out to random companies and as many clients as possible. And overall, these people operate in the same way as larger recruitment firms, so all the same rules apply here. When working with recruiters, it's important to be mindful of who you give your CV to. If a recruiter presents you to a company, that company can no longer accept a direct application from you, and the recruiting company and the host company will have an agreement to that effect. This prevents people from getting sourced through a recruiter and then applying directly through the company website, and then they've skipped out the recruiter's hiring fee, even though that recruiter was the one that originally found the candidate. You might not like recruiters, some people don't, but it's still a bit of a shoddy business practice to kind of go around their back when they were the ones that originally either found you as a candidate or found the company for you. When first talking to a recruiter, check if they actually have roles that match your skills. You can waste a lot of time talking to people that have no real relevant roles to you on the promise that they'll find something for you. Your time is valuable, so don't spend it on these speculative interviews. I've seen this where you can spend maybe an hour talking to a recruiter about your different roles, your different skills, and then you get to the end of the call and they say, hey, great, thank you for that. If I see anything, I'll let you know. And you've just spent an hour of your time. Maybe the interview practice is worth it, but you could have spent that on leak code, getting ready or applying for jobs that actually exist. Another tip for working with recruiters is that if you have a job somewhere that a recruiter sources for you, you quit and then you return to that company. The company probably still needs to pay the recruiter. These agreements have a fixed time on them generally. Could be 12 months, could be 6 months. You need to read the contract from the recruiter, from the host company to figure that out. When you're going back to a place, maybe you contract somewhere for 3 months or 6 months, then you leave and you return to that company. It's worth just letting the recruiter know if you're within that period. It's much easier for everyone. It's going to be much cleaner. and it won't look like you and the company are trying to do something dodgy, and you can preserve the relationship for everyone. The company and the recruiter may have a disagreement over this, whether it's you returning for a contract or who sourced the candidate originally. In these cases, stay out of it. It's not really your fight to have, and you should really avoid getting involved between the recruiter and the host company unless it's affecting your money specifically, or perhaps you've done something dodgy and then you'll need to get involved as well. But generally, I would recommend staying out of it. It's not your battle, it's not your fight. Both sides will want to preserve their relationship with you, and that's something that you can play, something you can have in your hand, where they're not going to mess their relationship up with you, even if they're disagreeing about something else. Just again, make sure that you're reading the contract both from the recruitment firm and from the host company. If that if that recruiter works for the host company, you're going to be fine. It's going to be in the clear. They're just really an extension of the hiring team. If it is an external company, it's worth reading, and you've got to understand your rights and obligations. You don't want to be in a spot where you're creating tension in the relationship, or maybe damaging a relationship with people that could help you in the future, just because you thought you could be a little bit sneaky and do something behind their back. It's easier to just do it the right way in the beginning. Recruiters' most valuable asset is their network. Having a list of contractors that they can go back to time and again to help their clients complete whatever projects they've got on, expand those teams as needed for overflow work or anything that the host company needs. If you're interested in contracting, then finding and building a good relationship with a recruiter can be really powerful. They all operate almost as a business development arm for your one-person agency, and you can go back to the same person time and again to get more contracts in the future. Recruiter wants to be known for having high quality, reliable candidates, so make it easy for them and they'll make it easy for you. When you spend time on programming subreddits or Twitter or anywhere, you're going to see memes calling recruiters dumb or that they don't understand anything about the industries that they're hiring in. Generally, this is inaccurate and doesn't really understand their role in the hiring process. It's important that recruiters have an understanding of the field they're working in, which helps them screen better candidates for the hiring organization, but don't expect them to be experts on language features or the latest frameworks. If you pass a hiring screen, you're going to be referred to a person at the company that will test your technical skills if necessary. For contract roles, you're probably not going to be going through that process, especially if it is a shorter term contract role and there's much less commitment between yourself and the company. For contract roles, you probably don't need to do a code test since the company has less commitment to you and you less commitment to them. If something goes wrong, you can just end the contract and call it there. But for those longer term permanent roles, you're going to be meeting someone probably from your team or at least your org that'll be quite up to date on what you're meant to be doing, and that'll be a standard code screen or whatever else it is, same as if you applied directly to the company. If you are presented with a role from a recruiter and you're not interested, it is perfectly fine to say that you're not interested, that you don't want to do that role, or that it's not your specialty, your languages that you want to work in. And you can also recommend your friends, ex-coworkers, family members, whoever it is, if you know someone that fits that PD, that person description, you can then recommend them to the recruiter. In some cases, they'll even have referral programs, so you can get a little bit of cash or maybe a bottle of wine or some other nice benefit that they offer you. That's a per recruiter thing, but often there is a referral process involved. The point of that being, if you know someone, just send them across. You can also be seen as someone that's well connected in your industry. Collect your coworkers over time, and you can help recommend and help someone else find their next great job. Timesheets, invoicing, and money. If you are hired in as a permanent employee to a host company via a recruiter, particularly if that recruiter is a in-house TA recruiter, talent acquisition recruiter, you will probably not have to do timesheets. That'll be based on whatever the host company does. Very normal there. If you are contracting, so you're not necessarily a permanent employee at the host company, you're probably doing either invoicing to the recruitment company or invoicing, or working as a casual employee and filling out a timesheet there. This bit is very specific to particularly Australia, where I am. If you want to contract long term, you should look at setting up your own business. In Australia, this is pretty easy. You set up an ABN, you get an ACN, business bank account, and you can do all of your business operations through there. You pay your taxes separately from your own personal income. And if you ever wanted to grow the business, that becomes really easy. Again, just chat with an accountant about it. It's not very expensive or hard to set up, but it is worth getting that professional help. As a contractor, you're not going to be entitled to any leave or superannuation, so make sure you take this into account when establishing your day rate. The host company and the recruiter will not manage your taxes for you, especially if you're running your own business. So don't get stung later because you didn't expect to pay taxes. When I was contracting and starting out, I was invoicing for a full year, doing all of this, and wasn't really thinking about what the tax situation was. What this ended up meaning is when I filled out my taxes at the end of the year, I had a big bill that I had to pay all at once. The ATO lets you do a payment plan, so that's okay. But it would be much easier, and what I do now is logging my taxes throughout the year through my business and then paying it off over that period of time. When contracting, a recruitment agency will receive a fee from your day rate that gets billed to the host company. An example of this is that you bill the recruiter $1,000 a day, and then the company is billed $1,200 a day. The company pays the recruiter, who then pays you. So the recruiter will be getting that $200 fee for whatever services they've provided. When I first started contracting, I had a day rate of $450 per day. And at one point, I saw I was being billed to the host company for over $900 per day. This is good and bad. On one side, I'm not getting the full value of my labor. On the other side, it shows that the host company has budget to pay for the role, and that in my next contract, I can go for a higher day rate. Getting upset isn't going to help you. So once contract is in place, you're going to have difficulty changing that, especially if it's only 3 or 6 months period. But if it matters to you that much, then raise it and be prepared to move on if you don't get the result that you want. What's important to remember, particularly for contracting, is that it's not forever. If you've got a 3-month contract and you get your day rate wrong and it's not quite what you wanted, you're only there for 3 months. You're going to have another opportunity in the future. You can increase your rate then and start working towards whatever it is that you actually wanted to get. When people first start contracting, they're generally thinking in terms of an hourly rate. I really recommend that you look at a day rate for your contracting. So a company wants you on board full-time, and every recruiter I have used that will always use day rates. Use a website like paycalculator.com.au. That's a great one we've got for Australia to figure out how much your take-home pay will be and what your tax obligation is going to be. Play around with the numbers, find something that you're happy with, because it's worth having that knowledge and knowing what you're actually going to be getting in your pocket. Contracting is different from working as a full-time employee, so have a play around with it, especially when you've got a business set up. There's going to be some different things you can do, different ways you can deduct from your income, and different things that your accountant will ask you to be doing with the money you've got coming in. So explore, particularly on paycalculator.com.au, really recommend that website, and see what you're going to get home every paycheck. What's great about having a day rate is that any day you work for any amount of time, it will trigger that day rate. When you're working hourly, you might get requests maybe on a weekend, or maybe if you're not working full-time somewhere, and they might say, hey, can you just do this for a couple of hours? When you've got an hourly rate set up, you're probably expected to work at that hourly rate. You might set a minimum as well. When you've got a day rate, you can just say, yep, I can do that for you, but it's going to cost a full day. Stick to this and you'll be able to avoid working 1 or 2 hours and only being paid for that. As a contractor, you need to be the strongest advocate for yourself. The recruiter is getting paid out of your salary. The host company is getting their projects done. You need to be the one that looks after yourself, because you're the only one that cares about you. As a general rule, the company and recruiter will avoid talking about how much your day rate is compared to the recruiter's fee in that information. Rightly or wrongly, this is what I've seen happen and will change maybe depending on the firm you contract through. If you have strong feelings about knowing how much the recruiter's getting paid and where the money's going and how much everyone's earning, do that at your own risk, and you'll probably expect some pushback as well. So just be mindful again of those relationships, and do you want this to be something you're going back to the same people frequently, and how much do you really need to know that, and what would you do with that information? That's always been the question for myself. If I know what the recruiter's fee is, does that change anything? Do I want to work there more or less, and have a real think about that, and how much you would really need to push that relationship to get that information out of them. Some recruiters will happily share it with you. Some host companies will happily share it with you. But often the case that I've seen is that information will maybe not be hidden, but at least obfuscated from you. Timesheets will be done with the recruitment agency, particularly if you're on a contract, and they may also be done with the host company. These will be 2 separate timesheets. I have had many contracts where I have had to fill out timesheets every week for the agency that I'm working for, and then also the recruitment firm that I'm working with. Generally, they are for different things. So the recruiter's fee will be established based on your timesheets. So just do them. Don't leave them till the last minute. They're going to start harassing you and calling you, and in many cases, you won't actually get paid until that invoice is filled out. The recruitment firm is unable to invoice the host company until your timesheets are filled out. So they're going to be really pushing you to do that. It's just easier to do it as you go. If you're being paid a day rate, you're not going to be paid overtime. However, if overtime is consistent, then raise it as an issue and either increase your rate or remove the workload. Remember, you've got to be the advocate for yourself. When working at the host company, it'll be really up to them if they do timesheets or not. That is more so at like advertising agencies. They're going to be doing timesheets a lot. Maybe a product company doesn't do it because they don't really care where the time's going, or maybe you've been resourced sort of in a block for a period of time. Very, very company dependent, and I can't really give any like solid advice on that. Other than if you're required to do timesheets, just do them. It's way easier to do them as you go instead of getting to the end of the month and having a friggin' 30-day thing. You're trying to think of all the different projects you worked on. So when you're contracting, particularly on the shorter term contracts, 12-month, 2-year, or even full-time employment will matter less. But if you're doing like maybe 1 to 6 month contracts, you need to raise your leave periods really early. And if you've got a big block of leave, like a month-long leave in a 3-month contract, you're probably unlikely to be successful with your application for that contract. Let both the recruiter know and the host company know. Contractors are brought in for specific work streams, and if you're not able to complete that, it's better to be honest earlier in the process. Most places won't care. They're fine if you want to take some leave, a couple of days here, or maybe a week. But you don't have any annual leave, so you're not going to be earning money over that time. You also don't have any sick leave, so be mindful of that. Obviously, don't go to work if you're sick, but it's not like you're going to be putting in a leave request. It's more about that conversation and making sure the project is well resourced. When looking for your next contract, you can go to a recruitment firm and ask them to shop around a contract for you. Recruiters can act as business development for your one-person agency. They're going to find the work for you, and then you complete it. When you get 2 months out from your contract finishing, I recommend start talking both to the host person at the company, whoever is looking after you there, and the recruiter about extending or ending the contract. In many cases, the work might be continuing, and they just say, yeah, we're going to add another 6 months onto the contract, and everyone's happy. What you want to know is if that contract is not continuing. So then you can start to talk to your recruiter again and see what they have coming up. They've constantly got work coming down the pipeline, so work with them, and then you can start to find roles before it gets too urgent. What you want to avoid is getting to the last week of a contract, nobody remembered to tell you that the contract was ending, and then you're suddenly without a job for a period of time. Much easier and much better to build that relationship and start looking either continuing at the host company or going somewhere new. If you're looking for a permanent role, you can go to recruitment companies and say, hey, I have these skills, here's my CV, do a bit of an interview with them, and then they can try and find different roles for you. So they're going to have a bunch of different roles, both permanent and contract. They can start to shop around and see what is good for you. This has a good benefit because you're not going through the company. So the company, when you interview with them, you interview with John's Widget Company, they're going to tell you all about the benefits, how great it is working there, and how much you want to be one of their team members. When you're working with a recruitment company, they can be a little bit more honest. They can say, maybe not explicitly, but hey, this place has been a little bit hard to work with, or I've placed 5 other candidates here and they all love their jobs. I really recommend that you join this place too. So I hope this gives you a quick introduction to recruiters in the software engineering space. I covered very heavy on software engineering, particularly for contracting. This will change if you're in different industries. Those aren't my areas. I can't tell you much about that, but I'm sure it's got similar attributes. So good recruiters will make the job hunt much better and more profitable for you. They can tell you how much other people earn in the industry, how much this role has, and you can work together to make sure that you're doing really well out of it. It's important to remember that you need to advocate for yourself in this arrangement because no one else is going to do it for you. Do the math, figure out what your day rate is, and stick with it. Thank you for watching another episode of Codicize, done in the bag, working with recruiters as a software engineer. This is something that's really cool. It is something you can really be on the front foot with and make a really powerful and impactful change to your career. So I hope you enjoyed the video. What else we got? We've got the Linktree. So Linktree/Nick Hayden. You can find all of my different links there. I was just on the Geek Within podcast, so check that out. Have a chat with Jeremy Wood about my journey and how I became an engineering manager. I'm also setting up a Patreon, so you'll see links for that soon. The bottom tier is just going to be supporter, get shout outs and videos, all the way through to having monthly one-on-one calls with me to help do your own career development and boost your skills as a software engineer, as an engineering manager. And hopefully we can get rid of these recruiters and we can advocate for ourselves. Alrighty, thank you for your time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.